This will sound very strange, but the death of the actor that played the main priest in the movie The Exorcist is a prophecy that is predicting that President Trump will die from a heart attack on December 12th, 2024, and that the symbolic beginning of the coming mass demonic possession of those who have taken the mark of the Antichrist that is described in the book of Revelation in the Bible will begin on June 9th, 2025. Trump's death will be the last Trump sign, a massive prophetic sign that is warning that God's judgment is about to befall the nation. Trump's death from a heart attack will symbolize the State of the Union and America's spiritual condition, which is heart disease towards God. Besides what I am about to explain, the proof that these predictions were made ahead of time is the date that YouTube says this video was posted, and videos can't be edited once they are posted. Additionally, what documents that these predictions were made ahead of time are these emails that are timestamped by Google, as well as these PDF documents that were created by a company named Forensic Notes. If you are skeptical, email me and I will forward these to you. The famous actor, Max von Sydow, died on the 9th of March in 2020. He is perhaps most well known for portraying the main priest in the movie The Exorcist. Max von Sydow was the Exorcist. Sydow is also well known for playing the main character in the classic Ingmar Bergman film The Seventh Seal. The name The Seventh Seal is inspired by the prophetic book in the Bible, the book of Revelation, which regards the end times period of judgment on the world. And in this book, there is a prophecy regarding 7 seals of judgment. In this movie from 1957, Max von Sydow's character plays a game of chess with the personification of death. The plot of this movie regards von Sydow's character's existential crisis and his questions regarding the existence of God. Max von Sydow was also the only Swedish-born actor to ever have been nominated for an Oscar award. He was nominated for Best Supporting Actor in the Tom Hanks movie Extremely Loud, Incredibly Close, which is a movie about 9/11. From the Bible, the number 9 symbolizes judgment. Max von Sydow died on the 9th of March at the age of 90. Von Sydow died on the 9th of March at the age of 90, exactly 90 days before the prophetic Feast of Pentecost, and on this date in June, the death toll from coronavirus officially reached 110,000. God frequently pairs the numbers 9 and 110 together to confirm the signs and connections and to point to 9/11. In the book of Joshua in the Bible, Joshua died at the age of 110. Joshua led the Hebrews around the security walls of the ancient city of Jericho before they collapsed in judgment. On 9/11, the Twin Towers, which were 110 stories high, collapsed, engendering a small earthquake that cracked the foundation of Federal Hall, where George Washington was inaugurated, on Wall Street. President George Washington was a founding father, and his inauguration as the first president was a symbolic founding of the nation. The cracking of the foundation of Federal Hall on Wall Street on 9/11 symbolized America's foundation in God being cracked. This is because after Washington's inauguration at Federal Hall, he then walked down Wall Street to Trinity Chapel, where he consecrated the nation to God, saying that if the nation were to ever turn away from God, it would lose its blessings. After 9/11, Trinity Chapel was called the Miracle Chapel, as it was the only building at Ground Zero to have survived. It did not even suffer a broken window due to the 70-year-old sycamore tree that was uprooted as it sheltered the chapel from the falling debris. In commemoration of this sycamore tree outside the chapel, today there is a huge bronze statue of its roots. In other words, through the 9/11 events, God was pointing to Trinity Chapel and Washington's covenantal consecration of the nation to God at Trinity Chapel. Wall Street is named after the original 9-foot-high wall of security that the Dutch built to keep the British and the Indians out. The collapse of 110 floors that cracked the foundation of Federal Hall on Wall Street, which is named after a 9-foot-high security wall, hints at 9/11 and points to Joshua, who died at 110, and the Hebrews that marched around the walls of security before they collapsed in judgment. 110 floors and the 9-foot-high wall of security that was Wall Street points to George Washington's march down Wall Street to Trinity Chapel that symbolized a covenantal relationship between America and God. To this effect, Washington's march down Wall Street with the New York Stock Exchange, the building that symbolizes America's financial strength, located on one side of the street, and Federal Hall, the building that symbolizes America's governmental and institutional strength on the other side, also pointed to the cutting rights ritual practiced in ancient Israel that was used in Abraham's and God's ritual walk in their covenant that is described in Genesis 15. A covenant that symbolizes Washington's walk down Wall Street and his covenantal consecration of the nation to God at Trinity Chapel. There are only two nations in the history of the world that were founded not on ethnicity or territory or language, but were founded solely for God: Israel and America. In every daily Bible that is divided into 365 readings, a portion of the Bible for each day of the year, on every September 11th, everyone that reads this standard 365-day Bible reads the passage in the book of Isaiah, chapter 9, verse 11, which is the judgment warning on ancient Israel, which was a raid on ancient Israel by the world's first recorded terrorists, the ancient Assyrians, and the terrorists on 9/11 were from the same part of the world. The Assyrians raided the northern kingdom of Israel first, and then later the southern kingdom of Judah was destroyed, which is why the terrorists on 9/11 hit the North Tower first, followed 17 minutes later by the South Tower. And this Isaiah 9:11 passage includes a mention of collapsed buildings and uprooted sycamore trees. On the morning after 9/11, Senate Majority Leader Tom Daschle gave a speech to the world regarding the events on 9/11. He quoted the passage in Isaiah 9:11, not realizing it was a judgment warning on the ancient Jews. He quoted how, after the raid by the Assyrians, the Hebrews did not repent to God, but instead vowed defiantly to rebuild and become stronger than before. And so, like the ancient Jews, America did not repent after the judgment warning, and instead defied God even more. And so, like ancient Israel, America will now be destroyed. This is why, in God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, he frequently pairs together the number 110 and the number 9. Both of these numbers symbolize God's judgment on the nation, and paired together, these numbers point to the big judgment warning that was 9/11. As well, these numbers paired together in God's signs and connections serve as a witness confirmation that the perceived signs and connections are from God. After the judgment warning of 9/11, America was given a period of grace to repent and turn back to God, or else judgment destruction. In the Bible, a 20-year period symbolizes a complete period of waiting. Jacob waited 20 years to get possession of his wives and property. The children of Israel waited 20 years to be freed of Jabin, the king of Canaan, when they were freed from bondage by Deborah and Barak. The Ark of the Covenant waited 20 years in Kiriath Jearim, and Solomon spent 20 years building his home and the house of God. On the 20th anniversary of the buildings that collapsed on 9/11 was the sudden collapse of America's presence in Afghanistan, and the iconic scene of this was the U.S. Air Force plane leaving the airport in Afghanistan, and the big number on the side of its plane is 1109, which hints at 110 and 9. Von Sydow was nominated for Best Supporting Actor in a movie about 9/11, and he died on the 9th of the month at the age of 90, exactly 90 days before the death toll officially reached 110,000. This also hints at 9/11. The last trump is a phrase the Apostle Paul used to refer to the sounding of the trumpet that will occur at the resurrection rapture event. Trump's death from a heart attack will be the last Trump sign. President Trump is God's trumpet that he uses to highlight and confirm his signs. The word trump in archaic English means trumpet, or the sounding of a trumpet. Donald Trump was born on a Sabbath day, and the portion of Torah that was read in synagogues on the day that Trump was born was the passage from the book of Numbers, in which God commanded the making of trumpets. Trump was born exactly 23 months, which happens to be exactly 700 days, before Israel was reborn, and God used Trump in prophetic signs regarding the restoration of Israel. Donald Trump chose his running mate Mike Pence, and their two names, Trump-Pence, hints at trumpets. Trump's presidency, including his election campaign, was synonymous with his border wall of security. Before the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment on ancient Jericho, the Hebrews blew trumpets. Before the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment on the ancient city of Jericho, the Hebrews marched around Jericho's walls of security 7 times over 7 days, while 7 priests blew 7 trumpets. This was a 3 sets of 7. In the book of Revelation, which describes God's judgment in the end times period, there are also 3 sets of 7 judgments. When the Hebrews blew the trumpets at Jericho, it was an announcement from God of judgment on the city of Jericho. Likewise, President Trump's presidency was an announcement of judgment on the nation of America, God's Gentile nation and the only other nation in history besides Israel that was founded on a relationship with God. This is why President Trump's election campaign and presidency were synonymous with his border wall of security, and why on the first day of his presidency, on Inauguration Day, President Trump was exactly 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days old, which was 3 sets of 7, and paralleled the 3 sets of 7 in the book of Joshua. Through the symbolic very beginning of Trump's presidency, God announced judgment on the nation. Joshua, the leader of the Hebrews, led them around the walls of security 7 times over 7 days, while 7 priests blew 7 trumpets. On the day that President Trump was elected by 77 electoral votes, the leader of Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, had been in power for exactly 7 years, 7 months, and 7 days. 90 days after Max von Sydow died at the age of 90 on the 9th of March, the official death toll reached 110,000. 3 sets of 7 days before the official death toll reached 110,000, the official death toll reached 90,000. 90,000 deaths and 110,000 deaths, 3 sets of 7 days apart, is another pairing of the numbers 9 and 110 that hints at Joshua and the collapsed buildings on 9/11. On this same day, the 9th episode aired of the Michael Jordan docuseries Last Dance, which hinted at the last Trump and was an episode titled The Flu Game. Jordan said he couldn't breathe during this NBA Finals game due to having the flu virus. 9 days after this 9th episode aired on the day of 90,000 deaths due to the coronavirus, And this game in which Jordan said he couldn't breathe while playing for the Chicago Bulls was the day the I Can't Breathe protests began at the George Floyd makeshift on Chicago Avenue in Minneapolis. When Michael Jordan represented America in the Olympics, he wore jersey number 9. On the same day the death toll reached 90,000, Trump tweeted a clip from an interview he gave with Maria Bartiromo, which was 1 minute and 10 seconds long. 1 minute and 10 seconds hints at the number 110, and this paired with 90,000 hints at 9/11. In the clip of the interview, he mentioned his border wall of security 3 times, right at the end of the 1 minute and 10 seconds. This tweet of the clip was 110 days after a section of his border wall of security collapsed due to high winds. High winds is an act of God. Again, Joshua, who led the Hebrews around the walls of security before they collapsed in judgment from God, died at the age of 110. From the Bible, the number 10 symbolizes God's perfection, and the number 9 symbolizes God's judgment. Hence, the number 19, which is 10 plus 9, symbolizes God's perfect judgment. This is why, for example, it was 19 years after the Babylonians first laid siege to the security walls of Jerusalem that Jerusalem was destroyed, and why judgment and destruction is coming upon America 19 years after 9/11. Trump's border wall of security collapsed due to high winds exactly 19 weeks after Trump first signed his border wall of security, which was a sign that communicated the handwriting is on the wall. The handwriting is on the wall is an idiom in English that originates from an instance of God's judgment in the book of Daniel in the Bible. Max von Sydow died at the age of 90, exactly 11 months before the 9th of February in 2021. A 90 days connection from the date the 9th, when Sydow died at the age of 90, and an 11 months connection from when Sydow died on the 9th at the age of 90 also hints at 9/11. On the 9th of February began Trump's impeachment trial that focused on his speech that ended at 1:10 p.m. with a call to march to the Capitol building, and also focused on the security perimeter around the Capitol building that was breached. 1:10 p.m. symbolizes the number 110, the age at which Joshua died in the Bible, and Joshua and the Hebrews marched around the security walls of Jericho before they were breached. The walls of Jericho collapsed due to an earthquake, and the 9th of February in 2021 was the 50th anniversary of the San Fernando earthquake in California. A 50 years period is extremely prophetic in the Bible, and this San Fernando earthquake, had it been a few seconds longer, would have collapsed an important dam and would have killed many thousands of people. This earthquake changed the way the nation prepares for earthquakes, and for example, the USGS was created as a result of this earthquake. On 9/11, it was Flight 11 with a crew of 11 people. The second plane had a crew of 9 people that flew into the Twin Towers that looked like a giant 11 in New York State, the 11th state to join the Union. Jesus coined the phrase the 11th hour, which referred to the last hour of daylight before darkness, and in English is an idiom that means last chance, time is running out, as in last chance for the nation to repent and to turn back to God. Max von Sydow died on the 9th of March at the age of 90 years old, and 11 months later was the 9th of February, and this connection is 9/11 symbolism. And the focus on Trump's call to march at 1:10 p.m. on the 9th of February is in itself 9/11 symbolism. And it was 110 stories that collapsed on 9/11. Which was a judgment warning pointing to the 11th chapter of Genesis and God's judgment on the Tower of Babel, which is exactly why the Twin Towers were named the World Trade Center and were replaced with the One World Tower. This is why the beginning of Trump's impeachment trial that focused on his call to march at 1:10 p.m. on the 9th of February was exactly 11 months after Max von Sydow died at the age of 90 on the 9th of March, and why Max von Sydow was nominated for an Academy Award for a movie about 9/11. August 23rd, exactly 80 weeks after the 9th of February in 2021, the beginning of the Trump impeachment trial that was focused on his call to march at 1:10 p.m. The amazing prophetic significance of this 80 weeks connection from this extremely important prophetic sign on February 9th, 2021 is explained in the Trucker Freedom Protest prophecy video on this channel, and also the Book of Joshua prophecy video on this channel. Make sure you watch these absolute must-watch videos, but I will just give a surface-level explanation here. The reason for this 80 weeks connection is that on the 6th day of the first month in 2021, there were 80 people that were arrested. The oldest one being 80 years old, a U.S. veteran. And then in the spring of 2022, lawyers for these people filed a petition with the government to release information on the 80 suspected or suspicious actors that were involved in the events of the 6th day of the first month. The reason for these 80 men signs is that Trump is also not only a type for Joshua in the Bible, but also King Jehu, and King Jehu sent 80 men into the temple to kill the false prophets of the Temple of Baal. The Capitol building is said to be America's temple, its temple to democracy. August 23rd, 2022 was the exact 7-year anniversary of the day that ISIS destroyed the Temple of Baal, the ancient historic Temple of Baal in Palmyra, Syria, which was just after Trump officially, symbolically began his ascendancy to the throne, to the president's office, when he famously descended the golden escalator. That was just a few days before ISIS destroyed the Temple of Baal. And again, King Jehu in the Bible destroyed the Temple of Baal after he sent in his 80 men. Also, I forgot to mention that on the 6th day of the first month, 80 congressmen voted against the vote. 79 members of the House and 1 senator, for a total of 80, protested the vote that occurred on the 6th day of the first month. On August 23rd, 2022, Trump lawyers published the letter they received from the head of the National Archives, Miss Wall, regarding 700 pages of classified documents. Trump was born exactly 700 days before Israel was reborn, and again, this was the 7th anniversary of the destruction of the Temple of Baal. Again, Joshua died at the age of 110 after leading the Israelites around the walls of security, and exactly 110 weeks after Ms. Wall's letter was published was the day that Trump trumpeted that he was in South Georgia, which is very prophetic and is explained in another video. It points to the island of South Georgia where Ernest Shackleton is buried and had his heart attack. Trump was there to visit the destruction from the Hurricane Helene and the flooding. The biggest story in this hurricane and destruction was Asheville, which is prophetic. And in that story, the college football game between the Appalachian State and Liberty University was canceled without being rescheduled, which hinted at liberty being canceled in America. And in Asheville, there were 72 deaths, and Trump will die, or is predicted to die, 72 days after these 72 deaths, this symbolic date on 10/1, when Trump trumpeted his visit to this South Georgia area. 72 days hints at Genesis 7:11. 2 is 1 plus 1. Genesis 7:11 is the verse in which the flood judgment began. And the date 10-1 hints at 110, and it was 110 weeks after Ms. Wall's letter, which was 80 weeks after Trump's impeachment trial began, which focused on his call to march at 1:10 p.m., which was exactly 11 months after it was reported that Max von Sydow died at the age of 90 on the 9th of the month, who was nominated for an Oscar for his role in a movie about 9/11, and Max von Sydow portrayed the Exorcist, because ultimately all of this is pointing to not only the predicted date of President Trump's death, but also the predicted date of what God is communicating as being the symbolic beginning of the coming mass demonic possession of people who have taken the mark of the Antichrist, which is the thing. That day will be 6/9, June 9th, 2025, exactly 63 months after it was reported that the actor who played the Exorcist died. The date 6/9, June 9th, hints at 6 divided by 9, which equals 0.666, the number that symbolizes the Antichrist in Bible prophecy. And so does this 63 months connection hint at 3 6s. But also, 3 6s is 3 sets of 3 sets of 7. It is 7 plus 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 7 months. 3 sets of 3 sets of 7 months, which is walls of security collapsing in God's judgment symbolism, as will be the death of President Trump. And because Trump is a type for Joshua, he is 3 sets of 7 symbolism. The walls of security collapsing in God's judgment is also symbolic of what is described in Revelation chapter 9, when the demonic realm collides with the earthly realm, the wall of security between the demonic realm and the earthly realm having collapsed. And this mass demonic possession that is described in Revelation chapter 9 is symbolized by Revelation chapter 9:11, the verse regarding their leader, Satan. And that is why The Exorcist also was nominated for an Oscar for his role in the movie about 9/11. Trump's death, his predicted death on December 12th, 2024, will be 7 times 7% of a year before June 9th, 2025, the symbolic beginning of the mass demonic possession. This is 179 days, and 179 is the 13th super semi-prime number, and the mark of the Antichrist, as well as the 2 Antichrists, are described in the 13th chapter of the book of Revelation. It is those who have taken the mark of the Antichrist who will become demonically possessed.